A man I heard from recently got sober for his daughter. She was 11. She had written him a letter that said, "Dad, I am scared to come home because I do not know which version of you will be there." He kept that letter in his wallet, looked at it every time a craving hit, and it worked. For 6 months, it worked. His daughter forgave him. His wife started trusting him again. Things at home got better, genuinely better. And then he relapsed. Not because things got worse, because they got better. The crisis passed. The letter lost its weight. And underneath all of that external pressure, there was nothing. No internal reason. No version of himself that wanted to be sober for his own sake. He had been performing recovery for his family. And when the audience was satisfied, the performance ended. Why are you here, not listening to this podcast? Why are you in recovery? Be honest with yourself. Because the answer to that question is the most important thing nobody has asked you. This episode is different from everything we have done so far. We have covered your dopamine system, your sleep, your stress response, your cravings, your options for programs and therapy. All of that is what is happening in your body. Today is about what is happening in your identity, who you are becoming, and more importantly, who you are doing this for. And I need to be more direct in this episode than I have been in any other, because this topic demands it. Thank you for taking the time to understand what is happening inside you, especially today, because what we are about to talk about is the thing most recovery programs never say out loud. And it might be the thing that determines whether this lasts. This is Recovery Decoded, Episode 7, The Identity Shift. Your body is healing. Here is the map. You choose the route. Let me guess why you started. Your wife said if you do not stop, she is leaving. Your kids will not look at you. A judge gave you a choice between treatment and jail. Your employer found out. Your doctor said your liver is failing. Something external broke open, and here you are. That is real. Those people matter. That pain matters. And if any of that is the reason you are here today, good. Whatever got you here, got you here. I am not going to shame you for it. But I need to say something that might be uncomfortable. And I am saying it because this show promised you honesty, not comfort. If the only reason you are sober is your wife, what happens if she leaves anyway? If the only reason is your kids, what happens when they grow up and move out? If the only reason is a judge, what happens when your probation ends? If the only reason is your job, What happens when you retire? External reasons expire. Every single one of them. People leave, court orders end, kids forgive you and the crisis passes, jobs change. And when the external pressure drops, if there is nothing underneath it, the relapse is almost guaranteed. Not because you are weak, because the motivation was borrowed. It was never yours. Let me explain why this happens neurologically, because this is not just motivational talk, this is how your brain actually works. When your motivation is external, staying sober because you are afraid of losing your wife, afraid of going to jail, afraid of dying, your brain is running on avoidance circuitry. Your hypothalamus and amygdala are driving the behavior through cortisol and fear. We covered this in episode 3, fight or flight, threat detection. Your brain is saying, if I use, bad things happen, so I will not use. That works for a while, but avoidance motivation is cortisol driven. It is exhausting. It is the same stress-based circuitry that drove the addiction in the first place. You are running from something, and you cannot run forever. Internal motivation activates a completely different circuit. When you make a decision based on who you are, not what you are afraid of, your brain engages the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. This is the region responsible for self-concept, values-based decision-making, and identity. It runs on dopamine approach pathways instead of cortisol avoidance pathways. It is not running from something. It is building toward something. Here is the difference in one sentence. I am not using because I am afraid of losing my family is avoidance. I am not using because that is not who I am anymore is identity. One is exhausting. The other is sustainable. One depends on external conditions staying threatening. The other survives no matter what happens around you. The research on this is clear. Studies on self-determination theory developed by DC and Ryan consistently show that internally motivated behavior is more persistent, more resilient to setbacks, and more resistant to relapse than externally motivated behavior. This is not opinion. This is decades of data across addiction, health behavior, and psychology. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. That sounds nice, but I do not value myself enough to do this for me. I got sober because someone else mattered more than I did. And honestly, I still feel that way. If that is where you are, I want you to hear this. That is okay. That is real, and I am not going to pretend that self-worth shows up on a schedule. For many people in recovery, self-worth is one of the last things to come back. You spent years destroying your relationship with yourself. You cannot rebuild that in 30 days. So start for your daughter, start for your wife, Start for your dog. Start for whoever you need to. But stay curious about the moment when it shifts, because it will. And when it does, that is the moment recovery becomes yours. A woman I want to tell you about was court-ordered into treatment. She hated every second of it. Sat in the back of group with her arms crossed for the first 6 weeks. Did the minimum. Counted the days until her mandate was up. Week 8. Someone in group said something about their kid. Something small. Something about missing a school play because they were too drunk to drive. And this woman laughed. Not at the story, at herself. Because she had missed her son's graduation for the same reason. And she realized she had not laughed in 3 years. She told me that laugh is what shifted it. Not the court order, not the therapist, not the homework. A laugh. She heard herself being human again and thought, oh, I am still in here. That is the identity shift. It does not come from a program. It does not come from a threat. It comes from a moment where you recognize yourself underneath everything you have been carrying. And once you see it, you want to protect it. Not for your wife, not for the judge, for you. Let us talk about where you feel this in your body. Because identity is not just the concept. It lives in your nervous system. When you are performing recovery for someone else, your body knows. There is a specific tension, a tightness in your chest, a clenching in your jaw, a sense of holding your breath. You are bracing, waiting for the next test, waiting to be caught, waiting to be judged. Your nervous system is in chronic, low-grade fight or flight because the motivation is threat-based. When the shift starts happening, when recovery starts becoming yours, there is a physical change. People describe it differently. Some say the tightness in their chest loosened. Some say they took a full breath for the first time in months. Some say they stopped clenching their jaw at night. Your body knows the difference between performing and becoming, even before your mind catches up. Real talk. And this one is going to be more direct than usual. If you are doing this entirely for your family right now, your wife, your husband, your kids, your parents, I am not going to tell you to stop. That love is real. Those relationships matter. But I need you to hear something that nobody in your life is going to say to you because they are too afraid of pushing you away. Your wife can be your reason, and you can be your reason. Your kids can matter, and you can matter. But if you are only on that list because of what you provide to other people, if the only version of you that matters is the one that shows up for someone else, that is not recovery. that is still performing. And performing is the same exhaustion that drove you to use in the first place. You were numbing because you were tired of being everything to everyone. And now you are sober and still being everything to everyone. The substance changed. The pattern did not. At some point, and I cannot tell you when because it is different for everyone, this has to become about you. Not you as someone's husband, not you as someone's parent, not you as someone's employee or someone's patient or someone's case number. You, the person in the mirror, the person who deserves to be alive and clear and present for no other reason than because they do. Recovery is the first time in your life where you are allowed to say, I am doing this for me, not selfishly, not at the expense of anyone, just I matter enough to be here. I matter enough to heal. I matter enough to build something that does not depend on whether anyone else stays or goes. I know that might be the hardest sentence you have ever tried to believe. That is okay. You do not have to believe it today. You just have to be open to the possibility that it might be true. Let that sit for a moment. Here is your toolkit. These are not crisis tools. These are identity tools. Things you do over weeks and months to build the internal foundation underneath whatever external motivation got you here. Tool 1, the why audit. Once a week, maybe Sunday night, maybe whenever feels right, sit with this question for 5 minutes. Why am I staying sober right now? Write down whatever comes. Do not filter it. Do not judge it. If the answer is entirely external, for my wife, for my kids, for my probation officer, that is information. It is not bad information. It just means the internal layer has not formed yet. And knowing that protects you, because it means when the external pressure drops, you need to be ready. If the answer starts shifting, even partly, to include something internal, because I like who I am becoming, because I do not want to go back to that version of myself, because I deserve to feel this clear. That is the shift happening. Write it down, date it, keep it. You are going to want that evidence later. Tool 2, the mirror check. Once a week, ask yourself one question. Did I make one decision this week that the old me would not have made? Maybe you said no to a drink without thinking about it. Maybe you apologized to someone without being asked. Maybe you went for a walk instead of sitting in the dark. Maybe you called someone when you were struggling instead of isolating. Write it down. 1 decision per week. That is it. What you are building is evidence. Your brain needs evidence that the new identity is real. Abstract self-worth means nothing to your prefrontal cortex. Concrete behavioral evidence means everything. Every decision you log is a data point that says, "This is who I am now." Tool 3, the values inventory. This one takes about 15 minutes, and it might be the most important thing you do this month. Write down 3 things you care about when you strip away the addiction and the obligations. Not what you should care about, not what your family wants you to care about, what you actually care about. What did you care about before the substance took over? What do you want to care about now? Maybe it is music. Maybe it is being outdoors. Maybe it is building things with your hands. Maybe it is being the kind of parent you never had. Maybe you do not know yet, and the honest answer is, I have no idea. That is a valid answer. It means you are at the starting line, not the finish line. But naming the question starts the search. Your recovery needs a destination, not just an escape route. Running from addiction is avoidance. Running towards something you care about is identity. The values inventory is how you figure out what you are running toward. Tool 4, the letter to your future self. Write a letter to yourself at 1 year sober. You do not have to be a writer. You do not have to be eloquent. Just say what you want that person to know. What do you hope they have built? What do you hope they feel? What do you want them to remember about where they started? Here is why this works neurologically. Your brain struggles with abstract future goals. But when you write a letter to a specific future version of yourself, you activate the same neural circuits involved in empathy and perspective taking. You create a relationship with the person you are becoming, and that relationship gives your brain a target, not a vague hope, a person. Put the letter somewhere you will find it in a year. And between now and then, every decision you make is a message to that person. Here is what to expect with identity as your brain heals. Days 1 through 30. You are surviving. Identity work is not the priority. External motivation is not just fine. It might be the only thing that works right now. Stay sober for your daughter. Stay sober for your freedom. Stay sober for whatever reason you have. The reason does not matter yet. Staying alive matters. Days 30 through 60. Small moments start appearing where you think, that is not who I am anymore. A choice you make without thinking. A reaction you have that surprises you. A moment where you catch yourself doing something the old version would not have done. Notice these. They are the first drafts of the new identity. Day 60 through 90. The gap between who you were and who you are becoming becomes visible. This is disorienting. You might not recognize yourself. Old friends do not fit. Old habits feel foreign. You do not know who you are yet. This is the in-between. It is uncomfortable. It is also construction. Something is being built even when you cannot see the shape of it yet. 90 days and beyond. Internal motivation starts outpacing external. You begin making choices because of who you are, not because of what you are afraid of. The identity solidifies, not all at once, in layers. And the people around you start to see it too, not because you told them, because you showed them. That man from the beginning, the one with the letter in his wallet, he went back to treatment after the relapse. But the second time, something was different. He told me, the first time I got sober for her. The second time I got sober because I saw who I was without it, and I wanted him back. That was the version that lasted. Here is what I want you to do this week. Run the why audit. 5 minutes. Write down why you are staying sober right now. Do not judge the answer. Just see it clearly. If it is entirely external, that is okay. That is where you are. But now you know. And knowing is how you start building something underneath it. If there is something we have not covered that you need to hear about, a specific struggle, a question about relationships and recovery, medication questions, how to handle a holiday or a family event sober, something you have been sitting on that nobody talks about, put it in the comments. This show is built around what you are actually going through, not what we think you should hear. You decide what comes next. And whatever you are facing this week, remember, nobody is making this choice for you. Not a program, not a family member, not this podcast. You are choosing to understand. You are choosing to show up. That is yours. Nobody gave it to you, and nobody can take it back. The more you understand, the more you own your recovery.